Discover the incredible bond. Black Maid's heartwarming act of love saves disabled boy's life. In a small southern town during the 1980s, there lived a spirited 10-year-old boy named Jamal. With wide, curious eyes that radiated hope, Jamal embraced the world around him, even with cerebral palsy tethering him to a wheelchair. His single mother, Maria, worked double shifts at the diner, enduring the sweat and toil to put food on the table. But while she was busy making ends meet, Jamal found his anchor in Mrs. Eloise, their elderly African-American housekeeper. Most folks in town saw her merely as a maid, but to him, she was a guiding light, illuminating every dark corner of his sometimes lonely life. Days spent with Mrs. Eloise turned into vibrant canvases painted with laughter, deep conversations, and endless stories. She taught him some of life's greatest lessons. Kindness matters more than skin color, and true worth is found in one's heart. They shared get-togethers filled with butter biscuits and sweet tea, where Jamal would listen to Mrs. Eloise's tales of resilience, her smooth voice wrapping him like a warm blanket. With her encouragement, he learned to dream big despite a world quick to judge him. But like a storm brewing on a clear day, Jamal's carefree existence felt the heavy weight of a new threat. An ugly group of bigots emerged, spewing hate and targeting Jamal and his family. His heart sank as whispers echoed around school, taunts following him like shadows. The cruelty made him feel as if he were drowning in a sea of prejudice, and the once vibrant spark in his eyes began to dim. His mother's sacrifices loomed large, heavy on his young shoulders, leaving him isolated from a world that should have embraced him. Then one fateful night, as Jamal's health faltered under the weight of his worries, Mrs. Eloise sprang into action. Her heart raced, not out of fear, but from an unwavering resolve. She knew they could not face this storm silent. With fire in her soul, she rallied their neighbors, weaving tales of compassion, reminding them that Jamal's spirit shone brighter than hatred's darkness. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. She invited everyone to a gathering, aiming to stand united against hate. The air was thick with tension, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, fear painted the townsfolk's faces. Would they step forward to support Jamal, or would they choose the comfort of silence? The stakes grew higher, and every passing moment felt like an impending storm waiting to break. As people hesitated, Jamal lay in his room, the unease twisting in his stomach. His fate felt entangled with that of the town. Would they rise up for him? There was an ache in his heart, a question burning in his mind. Would he remain invisible, or would they see him for who he truly was, a boy full of dreams, a heart beating against the odds? The night loomed ahead, and a choice hung in the balance, each breath heavy with possibility. The hour grew late, and the soft sounds of croaking frogs and rustling leaves filtered through Jamal's open window. He stared at the ceiling, imagining the faces of his neighbors gathered outside. Would they hear Mrs. Eloise's call for unity? Or would they choose to ignore it like the whispers that taunted him at school? His mind raced. What if they didn't show? What if they turned their backs? Panic gnawed at him, squeezing his heart tighter with each passing second. Jamal closed his eyes, trying to push the thoughts away. He took a deep breath and pictured Mrs. Eloise, her bright smile, wise eyes filled with hope. If anyone could convince them, it was her. Meanwhile, across town, Mrs. Eloise stood before a growing crowd, her voice steady despite the uncertainty swirling around her. "This boy represents our future," she implored, her hands gesturing passionately. "Hatred does not define us. Love does. We cannot let fear conquer our hearts." Whispers floated through the crowd, doubt, fear, but also understanding. She felt the tension, the stranglehold of prejudice that silenced many. But she held her ground, feeling the spirit of Jamal with her. Her words swelled with emotion, reaching into the crowd, imploring them to look beyond the surface. As she spoke, Jamal quietly shifted in his bed. He wished he could be there to feel the energy, the unity. As if reading his thoughts, Mrs. Eloise lifted her chin, seeking out the eyes of those who needed to hear her most. Jamal is a part of our community, and he deserves our love, respect, and support. With every word, the crowd shifted. Heads began to nod. Murmurs of agreement broke through the barrier of silence. Jamal's heart pounded with a strange mix of hope and fear. A voice called out, breaking the crowd's hesitation. But what can we do? They made it clear that love isn't enough. Mrs. Eloise's eyes sparkled with determination. We show them our strength through unity. Together we raise our voices high against this hatred. We won't just be seen. We'll be heard. Cheers erupted, slowly at first, then swelling like the tide. Jamal could almost feel it, the warmth of people rallying for him, fighting alongside him. As if touched by a wave of courage, one by one, his neighbors began to step forward, visibly moved. Hands raised in solidarity, whispers of support transformed into shouts of affirmation. Back in his room, tears streamed down Jamal's cheeks, a mix of disbelief and relief. He realized this moment was more than a gathering. It was a declaration. Then, just as he began to embrace the swell of hope, the room suddenly brightened with warmth, and he heard a familiar knock at the door. Maria stepped in, her brow furrowed but her heart fiercely protective. Jamal, sweet boy, it's time. Time? For what? Come with me. As she wheeled him outside, Jamal braced himself, excitement bubbling in his chest. What awaited him? He could feel the energy of the crowd, powerful and unwavering. But just as he reached the threshold, uncertainty returned like a shadow. Would the love surrounding him hold against the storm? He held his breath, eager yet terrified. What was waiting for him out there? And then, Mrs. Eloise caught his eye, her smile radiant in the moonlight, and he knew. This was just the beginning. But the question remained, could love truly conquer the darkness? Jamal's heart raced as Maria pushed him into the cool night air, the sounds of the gathering swirling around him like an electrifying current. He could hear the rhythm of the crowd, a pulse of hope and longing intermingled with the buoyant cries of support. With each moment, the tension in his chest eased just a little, replaced by the raw possibility of change. As they approached the group, Jamal caught sight of familiar faces. His neighbors, his community, all of them standing side by side. Some wore expressions of uncertainty, while others glowed with determination. Mrs. Eloise stood at the center, her arms raised high, radiating strength like a beacon. Look, Jamal, Maria said, excitement sparking in her tone. They're here for you. The moment he entered the circle of light, a wave of emotion washed over him. Voices rang out, Jamal, we're with you. You are not alone. The words wove a tapestry of belonging, and for the first time he felt a glimmer of acceptance wrapping around him. Mrs. Eloise stepped forward, kneeling beside him so they were eye to eye. You are our future, Jamal, she said, her voice soothing yet fervent. You remind us that we are stronger together. Look at them. They've come to stand with you. He took a deep breath, trying to smile, but his heart felt heavy with the weight of his past. Voices from the school hall echoed in his mind, taunting him with the shadows of doubt. Would they really stand by him when it mattered? Suddenly, he heard a shrill voice pierce through the crowd, a tone he recognized all too well. What are you all doing? Are you really going to let a boy in a wheelchair mess everything up? It was Ryan, one of the boys who tormented him at school. Jamal's heart sank. But then, from the back of the crowd, a deep voice called out. You don't understand what you're saying. This isn't about a wheelchair. It's about humanity. It was Mr. Johnson, a local shop owner, his stance unwavering. Jamal deserves respect just like each one of us. Jamal's breath hitched. He looked around, watching as heads began to turn, eyes narrowing at Ryan. The whispers of discontent had been transformed into a collective voice. It was an unmistakable show of support, and the warmth surged within him like a tidal wave. Ryan faltered, unsure. He had expected anger, shouts, even laughter, but this was something different. This was unity. This was hope. As Mrs. Eloise raised her hand, the crowd fell silent. "Let me tell you about Jamal," she began. "This boy has dreams just like you. He loves dogs, wants to travel just like you do." Curious glances shot back and forth through the crowd. Jamal felt himself getting lost in her words. She spoke of his laughter during the small moments, how he found beauty in the simplest things. For the first time, he realized that this wasn't just about him. It was a lesson woven into the fabric of their community. As the cheers grew louder, Jamal's heart swelled. Could this really be happening? He thought. But just as hope began to transform into a real feeling of belonging, a rumble of voices flickered through the crowd. A new wave of skepticism began to seep in, and Jamal could feel uncertainty creeping back into the atmosphere. Could we really change things? Someone whispered. The question hung in the air, heavy and palpable, and Jamal felt all eyes turn back to him. He knew that whatever would happen next, this was a moment that could either shatter or build their community. With his hands shaking but his heart determined, he knew he had to speak. Could he summon the courage to turn this moment into a clarion call for understanding and acceptance? What would he say to them? Would his voice carry above the doubts? Jamal inhaled deeply, summoning every ounce of strength he had, and began to speak. Jamal's voice broke through the murmurs, steady yet soft. I just want to say thank you," he began, scanning the faces before him. Nervous energy danced in his stomach, urging him to rush his words. But he focused on the warmth from the crowd, pushing him forward. "Thank you for being here, for showing up when it felt like I was all alone." The air felt thick with expectation. He noticed Mrs. Eloise's supportive nod and Mr. Johnson's warm smile, which encouraged him. "You've made me feel like I belong. All this time, I thought I was just the boy in the wheelchair, but," he paused, searching for the right words, "but I'm more than that. I'm Jamal, and I have dreams just like everyone else." His heart raced as the crowd shifted, a ripple of movement that spread through them. He could see curious faces leaning in, hanging on his every word. He felt the strength of their attention, grounding him like the roots of an old tree. "I want to create art one day," he continued, the conviction building in his chest. "I want to tell stories that inspire. Stories that remind us that we can overcome anything together." Cheers erupted, tentative at first, then growing louder. Jamal took another breath, letting the surge of adrenaline flow through him. "It's true that I have challenges, but that doesn't define who I am. We all have challenges." He glanced at Ryan, who stood in the back, visibly uncomfortable. "We have stories that connect us, stories of hope and struggle. I fought my own battles, and there were moments I didn't feel worthy. But you made me feel seen tonight, like I'm part of something bigger." The energy shifted from skepticism to empowerment. Jamal felt the current of support flowing through the crowd, uniting them in shared purpose. "Together, we can build a community that lifts each other up. Not just me, but everyone. Everyone deserves a place to belong." He felt a surge of courage and hope sweep over him, laced with the stories of all who surrounded him. As faces lit up in understanding, Jamal could see softening edges where doubt once lingered. "I know it's not easy," he said, his voice steadying, "but when we stand together, we're powerful. We can change our world." The crowd erupted into applause, and Jamal shook with the intensity of it all. The roar filled his heart with a pulse of joy, replacing the old shadows of doubt. He gazed into the sea of faces, neighbors, friends, and the walls he built began to crumble. Yet deep down, amid the cheers, he felt a flicker of fear. Would this resolve last beyond tonight? Would they truly stand together when the real challenges emerged? A moment of silence captured everyone, a shift from jubilation to contemplation. Before he could dive deeper into his thoughts, a figure approached from the edge of the crowd. A surprise visitor who had once been part of his darkest moments in school. "Jamal, can we talk?" Ryan's voice sliced through the tension, carrying a weight that shifted the atmosphere yet again. Jamal caught his breath, uncertainty washing over him like waves crashing in. What could Ryan possibly want now? Could this be a moment for reconciliation? Or would it push the community apart once more? He braced himself for whatever was coming, uncertain of the role Hope would play in this familiar confrontation. Was this the chance for healing, or an unforeseen setback? Jamal's heart drummed in his chest as he faced Ryan, the once antagonistic shadow from his past. The crowd quieted, their anticipation palpable. He caught glimmers of concern on the faces of the people around him. It was as if they held their collective breath, waiting for a reaction. "Can we talk?" Ryan repeated, his tone softer now, almost pleading. The words hung heavy in the air. Jamal could feel the tension stretching, teetering on the edge of a knife. Part of him wanted to say no, to turn away from the reminder of his pain. But another part, the part that had just tasted hope, knew he needed to confront this. "All right," Jamal said, his voice firmer than he felt. "Let us step outside." As they moved away from the vibrant crowd, Jamal's eyes darted back to the familiar faces of Mrs. Eloise, Mr. Johnson, and others. He took a deep breath, determined to face whatever lay ahead with strength. Outside, the evening air was cool, a gentle breeze ruffling their hair. Jamal rolled his wheelchair a little further into the shadows, aware of how exposed this conversation felt. Ryan shifted uncomfortably on the pavement, his hands stuffed in his pockets. I've wanted to talk to you for a while," he began, avoiding Jamal's gaze. "I've thought a lot about everything that happened. I know I wasn't there for you, and I hurt you. I'm sorry." The apology hung in the air, his words stumbling out like a hesitant first step. Jamal's chest tightened. Anger and hurt flickered to life within him. "Do you really think an apology will fix things? You made my life miserable, Ryan. You made it so hard to just be me." Ryan flinched at Jamal's words, but he held his ground. "I know, and I don't expect you to forgive me right away. It's just, seeing you tonight, standing up there, it made me realize how wrong I was. You're brave, Jamal. I've been a coward." Jamal narrowed his eyes, searching for sincerity in Ryan's expression. Part of him wanted to remain furious, to shield himself from the rawness of childhood memories twisting in his chest. "You think showing up here makes everything okay?" "No, it doesn't." Ryan shook his head. "But I want to do better. I want to understand. I want to be better for you, for our community. We can create change together." The offer dangled in the air, shocking and unexpected. Jamal could hardly believe his ears. Heal together? Could he trust someone who had once attacked him so openly? As tension swirled around them, at that moment, Jamal caught a glimpse of distant lights reflecting off the faces of his friends in the crowd. Flickers of hope seemed to dance there, a reminder of the community he had just begun to embrace. "Why now?" he found himself asking. "What changed?" "I started listening," Ryan said, his voice shaking just a bit, "and I realized how held back you've been. It's not right. We need to lift each other up, all of us. I want to help, Jamal. Please give me a chance." For a heartbeat, silence settled between them, heavy but charged with potential. Jamal's heart wrestled with the remnants of bitterness, yet he felt a spark of something else possibility. What would lifting each other up really mean? As if sensing their convergence, the crowd erupted into surprised laughter and cheers from the front. Jamal turned his gaze back to Ryan, uncertainty flashing in his eyes. "This is a lot, Ryan. I don't know if I can just forgive and forget." "Just take it one step at a time," Ryan replied, sincerity settling in his gaze. Together, for a lingering second, Jamal felt the weight of decisions hanging around them. Could this be a real turning point? But just then, a loud shout from the crowd cut through their tense standoff. "Hey, Jamal, we need you back here." As those voices echoed, Jamal was pulled away from the moment, caught between the past and future. Would he be ready to embrace this, to grab hold of a new possibility? The answer was as uncertain as the direction this night could still take. Jamal felt the weight of the crowd's voices tugging at him like a lifeline thrown into choppy waters. He turned his head slightly, watching the faces lit by the soft glow of the nearby lanterns. They looked eager, expectant. But everything felt heavy, like a thick fog pressing down on him. Jamal! Someone called again, a mix of urgency and excitement in their voice. We need you. He glanced back at Ryan, who looked both anxious and hopeful. What do you want to do? Ryan asked, his face a blend of concern and determination. Jamal took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill his lungs but not quite clear the knot in his throat. I don't know, he whispered. The clarity he felt while addressing the crowd faded into a haze of confusion now. Let us go back, Ryan urged. You're the one they want to see. But Jamal hesitated. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about choices and bonds, healing and rebuilding. He squeezed the handrails of his wheelchair, feeling the strength of metal beneath his grip. It grounded him. Okay. Just give me a second, he said, his voice firmer now. He felt the gust of an impending storm in his heart, turbulent yet promising. Together, they turned back towards the welcoming glow of the crowd. As they rolled up the ramp, Jamal felt his stomach churn. Everyone's eager expressions were like a spotlight on him. A wave of emotions washed over him. This was his chance to redefine who he was. And yet, what if he wasn't ready? The crowd buzzed as he approached. He could see Mrs. Eloise smiling, and Mr. Johnson raising his fist in solidarity. Their enthusiasm ignited a flicker of courage within him. Jamal! Someone shouted from the back. You inspire us. He paused, the words sinking into the depths of his being. Inspire. Was that really him they were talking about? Thanks, he replied, his voice barely above a hush. But he felt something shift deep inside, like the ground beneath his wheels was settling into place. Heart racing, he looked over at Ryan, who was watching him with a mix of admiration and regret. Maybe I can share. Jamal began, uncertain yet hopeful. Maybe I can share my story. My journey. The crowd erupted in applause, their cheers echoing in the cool night air. Jamal felt his pulse quicken. Encouragement fluttered around him like fireflies. Could he really share his journey, his struggles, his victories? Yeah. Someone shouted. Let us hear it. He took a moment, lifted his gaze to the stars dotting the night sky, wishing for a sign. And then he whispered, Okay. But I want to make it clear the struggle belongs to all of us. We rise together or we fall divided. Ryan stood beside him, nodding fervently. Jamal felt a surge of empowerment, an urge to inspire not only himself but others who had faced their own battles. As he began to speak, weaving through the laughter and tears of memories, he realized that this moment felt monumental. The healing wasn't just about him forgiving Ryan, but about forging a new path forward, one filled with united strength. But just as Jamal found his rhythm in the crowd's energy, a loud crash echoed nearby. The laughter faded instantly, replaced by sharp gasps. What was that? Someone whispered. Jamal turned, heart leaping again, wondering if this night had another twist in store. A part of him feared the worst, but deep down, a stronger part believed in the resilience of the moment, the potential yet to unfold. Stay here, Ryan said, his voice tense as he moved toward the source of the sound. Jamal clutched his chair, breathless. What awaited them yet? Would this evening devolve into chaos or emerge with a renewed sense of community? He had no idea, but in that heartbeat, he knew one thing. He was ready for whatever came next. Jamal's heart raced, matching the pounding rhythm of the crowd's anxious murmurs. Ryan's quick footsteps echoed as he maneuvered through the gathering, eyes locked on the source of the disturbance. Jamal's mind whirled, 1,000 thoughts pinged in confusion. Was it a fight? An accident? Jamal, stay with me, Ryan called back, glancing over his shoulder. Jamal squeezed the armrests of his wheelchair tighter, the cool metal pressing into his palms, grounding him amid the uncertainty. People shifted restlessly around him, faces blurred with concern. The air had thickened again, now heavy with something more serious than just excitement. He could sense the tension simmering, ready to boil over. Then, from the direction of the crash, a woman cried out, her voice slicing through the thick atmosphere. Help! Somebody help! It was frantic, a call that twisted Jamal's insides like a knot. Stay put, Jamal, Ryan shouted again, urgency chasing him as he pushed through the crowd. But the world around Jamal blurred, his focus narrowing. In that moment, his own fears faded into a faint whisper compared to the unmistakable call for help. This was about community, about reaching out in moments of crisis. With a deep breath, he pushed forward in his wheelchair, calling out, "What happened?" His voice caught some attention, and soon a few faces turned towards him, eyes wide with worry. An accident, someone fell. A young man near the front shouted, frustration creeping into his tone. Panic began spreading like wildfire through the crowd. People edged closer, their curiosity veering into anxiety. Jamal slated left, peering around the throng of bodies, searching for the trouble. The thrumming fear ebbed and flowed, oscillating with his need to act. In a rush, he thought of the people who had inspired him tonight, the ones who showed up filled with hope. Could he be one of them? Make space. Ryan's commanding voice pushed through again as he returned, breathless but determined. We need to make a path. Jamal looked to Ryan, heart pumping. What can we do? Just keep moving. Follow my lead. Ryan's eyes held a fierce energy, stoking Jamal's dwindling courage. And in that moment, Jamal realized they didn't need to look for superheroes when they could be the answer. Their actions could save someone today. With renewed determination, Jamal pressed on, maneuvering to the place where the crowd was thickening. The keeper of the light, he thought to himself. He wanted to be that beacon. As they pressed through, Jamal saw her, an elderly woman crumpled against the nearby fence, clasping her ankle. Panic washed over her face, tears brimming in her eyes. The lamp light flickered against the deepening shadows, illuminating her plight. We need to help her, Jamal said, voice gaining strength. Ryan nodded, kneeling beside her with a comforting smile. Ma'am, can you tell us your name? Evelyn, she stammered, wincing as she tried to shift. I was just trying to see the lights, and I lost my balance. Evelyn, Jamal spoke softly, feeling the warmth of her gaze. We're here for you. Just hold on a moment. Anger dissolved into compassion within the crowd. People pressed in, hands reaching out, ready to pitch in. Encouragement spread like a ripple. Questions poured from the well-intentioned onlookers. Assistance offered and accepted. The fear in the air transformed into a collective resolve. Jamal felt it settle in the core of him. This was his moment, not to inspire only but to connect, to share in humanity's struggle, and to recognize the power in vulnerability. As they settled around Evelyn, he realized that together, they could uplift each other in the storm that had just struck. But just as they prepared to help her rise, another sound erupted from the shadows. A shouting voice interrupted the goodwill, cutting through the hope that had begun to reclaim the night. Get away from her. This is my aunt. Jamal's heart sank. What now? As he turned towards the direction of the voice, apprehension swirled around him. Would they manage to help Evelyn, or would this moment fracture everything they had built only moments before? The crowd stiffened, tension tightening the air like a drawn bowstring. Jamal felt it grip his chest. He glanced at Ryan, whose face turned from determination to caution in a heartbeat. Everyone's eyes darted towards the emerging figure, the young man now making his way through the throng, full of fire and desperation. Listen, we're trying to help your aunt, Ryan called out, voice steady yet strained. He was a wall of calm against the storm threatening to break loose. Jamal could see the muscles in his arms taut with resolve. Evelyn looked up, fear blooming on her face. Danny, no, they're here to help me. Her voice trembled, but it cut through the young man's anger like a knife through fog. He paused, his brow furrowing as he took in the sight of the crowd gathered around his aunt. Get away from her, Danny shouted again, tone rising. Jamal sensed the shift, an underlying fear that came from wanting to protect. In his gut, Jamal understood. This was the heart of the moment. What would they do next? Danny, please, Jamal spoke, his voice raw with sincerity. He pushed himself forward, away from the shelter of the crowd. His heart hammered. She fell. We're here to help her stand back up, to get support. Danny hesitated, emotions swirling in his eyes. But why aren't you just letting her be? She didn't need any of you. She needs us now more than ever, Ryan said, breaking in gently. The way he held Danny's gaze gave Jamal hope. She fell and she's scared. We know how to help. Jamal reached out just a little. We all fall sometimes, Danny. It's what we do next that matters. The young man's expression started to crack. Perhaps he was feeling something, a sense that despite the chaos, he wasn't alone. Evelyn reached up slightly, her hand trembling. Danny, I'm okay. Please. Her voice wavered but held a faint, calming reassurance. Danny's breath slowed, realization dawning in his eyes. He stepped closer, uncertainty battling with love. You promise you'll take care of her? Yes, Ryan affirmed. We promise. With a deep exhale, Danny stepped back. For a moment, uncertainty crossed his face before he nodded. Okay, just don't hurt her. Jamal felt a wave wash over him. The night had shifted from fear to compassion. They moved quickly to help Evelyn, supporting her with gentle hands as she slowly rose. There was an unspoken bond between them all now, a glow of shared purpose lighting their eyes against the backdrop of shadows. As they helped her to her feet, Jamal marveled at the strength found in vulnerability. Evelyn looked at him, gratitude flowing like sunlight. Thank you, she whispered, tears shining in her eyes. But just as the tension began to dissipate, a new commotion erupted from the side. A siren blared in the distance, fierce and urgent, threatening to mar the moment. Jamal turned to Ryan. The urgency was back, and he was already moving towards the source, leaving Jamal to grapple with the emotions still brewing inside. We can't stop now, Ryan called over his shoulder. We need to make sure everyone is safe. Jamal's heart raced again at what lay ahead. They had come this far, and there was no way he would stay back now. But he wondered what more would they have to face before they found peace in the light of that evening? With a quick glance at Evelyn and a nod of determination, Jamal pushed onward into the unknown, where challenges waited in the shadows. What other twists might the night hold? Jamal sprinted after Ryan, weaving through the crowd that had begun to disperse, their urgency infectious. As he ran, his thoughts churned. The siren's wail echoed in his ears, a reminder that their work was far from done. He could still feel the warmth of Evelyn's hand in his, her trust resting upon him, and he couldn't let her down now. They reached the edge of the gathering, where a small group had formed around something or someone. Panic prickled at the back of Jamal's neck. He pushed through the last few people and came upon the scene. A man lay on the ground, crumpled and still. His face was pale and there was no movement. The air felt heavy, filled with the scent of worry and fear. Is he breathing? One of the onlookers asked, their voice threaded with doubt. Jamal felt a knot tighten in his stomach. Ryan was already kneeling beside the man, assessing the situation with the determination that had carried them thus far. Stand back, Ryan ordered, focused intensely. He reached for the man's wrist, feeling for a pulse. Jamal watched, heart pounding, as Ryan's expressions shifted from hope to concern. Someone call 911. Ryan shouted, urgency sharpening his voice. A woman nearby hurried to comply, her fingers shaking as she dialed. Jamal stood beside Ryan, feeling inadequate yet compelled to help. This wasn't about bravado. It was about life and death. The crowd had gathered again, a mix of curiosity and concern painted on their faces. He could feel their eyes, heavy with expectation. Ryan looked back and gave a quick nod, a signal to cooperate. Help me turn him on his side, he instructed, and Jamal moved to comply, shifting the man carefully. As they rolled him, Jamal couldn't help but notice a glimmer of something, a hint of life in those pale features. Come on, man. Stay with us, Ryan urged, his voice low yet powerful. He began administering CPR, each press of his hands a silent plea. Jamal's heart raced. Was this how they would find their purpose tonight? With every count, he watched Ryan not just as a friend but as a lifeline in chaos. Memories flooded in, echoing moments when they had fought battles in the past, growing stronger with every challenge. They were warriors in their own right, fighting not just for themselves but for those who couldn't fight for themselves at that moment. As they continued, Jamal felt a swell of courage. "I'll take a turn," he said, and when Ryan nodded, he could feel the weight of responsibility settle into his chest. He counted, pushing down against the man's chest, drawing on every ounce of determination. With each beat, he couldn't help but wonder, what if this didn't work? What if they were too late? There was a chance they might fail, but there was also a chance they might succeed. Then suddenly, a faint gasp pierced the night. Both men froze and met each other's gaze, disbelief mingling with hope. The stillness broke, and the crowd leaned in closer. A collective breath held as the man stirred. With shaky breaths, he opened his eyes. "What happened?" he croaked, confusion filling his expression. Relief washed over Jamal, flooding him with warmth. They weren't just fighting for a life. They were fighting for every story left to be told, every connection still to be made. But just as cheers began to ripple through the crowd, another sound more insistent, more threatening rose up from further down the path. A ruckus had erupted, and Jamal felt the atmosphere shift again. "What now?" he whispered to Ryan, a sense of dread creeping back in. He didn't want to feel fear again, not when they had just turned things around. But as the crowd began to disperse, eyes wide with concern, he knew all too well that yet another challenge awaited them. "Let us find out," Ryan said, the determination returning to his voice. As they moved toward the commotion, Jamal wondered what else lay ahead in the night, and would they be able to face it together? The night air crackled with tension as Jamal and Ryan made their way through the crowd, their hearts racing in sync. They reached the edge where the disturbance had emerged, a group of people arguing fiercely. Shouts and angry gestures painted the scene with chaos, threatening to unravel the unity they had just fought to establish. "What's going on?" Jamal asked, confusion swirling in his mind. His hands itched to help, yet he felt a moment of vulnerability creeping back in. Ryan squeezed his shoulder, grounding him. "Let us see what we can do." As they pushed through the throng, Jamal noticed two young men facing off. One was familiar Ryan's old friend, Danny, the one who had defended his aunt. The other, a rival, bruised and agitated, was flaring with frustration. Words flew like arrows, sharp and lethal. "Why do you care so much?" the rival spat, throwing a hand up. "You think you can just waltz in and save everyone? You're not a hero." "But I'm trying to," Danny yelled back, desperation lacing his voice. "These are our people." Jamal could feel the anger pulsing in the air like static electricity. His heart sank anew. Had all their efforts in uniting the community already begun to fray? Could love really conquer these emerging divisions? In that moment, Jamal knew they couldn't let fear and anger win. "We can't keep fighting amongst ourselves," he called out, struggling to rise above the noise. "We fought for something bigger tonight." Their attention shifted, and he saw glimmers of recognition flash across shocked faces. Taking a breath, he pushed his wheelchair closer. "I'm Jamal, and I know what it feels like to feel small. But tonight, with everyone here, I felt seen. We can either let this divide us, or we can come together and support each other through our struggles. This isn't just about one fight. It's about all of us standing together." Silence wrapped around him, thick and potent. For a heartbeat, it seemed as if time had paused. Slowly, the air began to shift, a ripple of consideration running through the crowd. Ryan stepped forward, confidence kindling like a fire under his words. "Jamal's right. It doesn't matter where you come from or what you've done before. We need to lift each other up. Everyone deserves a chance to change." The rival's posture softened slightly, confusion mixing with vulnerability. "You really think we can change?" he muttered, eyes darting amongst the gathering crowd. "We're already changing," Jamal replied firmly, looking around. "Look at how we just helped Evelyn. Look at how we saved a life. If we can do that together, why can't we learn to find a way forward too?" Danny nodded, taking a step closer to Jamal, his eyes clear with understanding. "I may have messed up in the past, but I'm done letting that define me. Let us come together." We can't fight each other anymore. Gradually, murmurs of agreement danced among the crowd, an unmistakable shift of resolve washing through them. The rivals' angry gaze began to falter, replaced by the flickering understanding of a youth confronted by his own limitations. Jamal leaned in, his heart full of hope. "We grow when we stand together," he reminded them, warmth flooding through him. "I'm not just the boy in a wheelchair. Every single person here is a story worth listening to. Let us write a new chapter together." Cheering started to rise again. Jamal could see their faces soften, the ice of anger thawing, each heart inching closer to a realization. It was their stories, their struggles, that had forged this unity. Laughter began to break out amidst the nervousness, turning confrontation into connection. Slowly, hands were extended across the divide. Voices softened as older neighbors began to share hugs, as if the warmth spread through the air like sunshine breaking through morning fog. Ryan turned to Jamal, tears glistening in his eyes. "You did it, Jamal. You showed them the way." But Jamal knew it wasn't about him. "We all did it," he replied, smiling wide at the blossoming community. We leaned on each other. As the warmth of understanding wrapped around Jamal, he felt something shift deeply within him. The world seemed brighter, possibilities unfurling like petals in spring. Every challenge faced, every struggle embraced. These were not just his battles or those of the community. They were threads woven into the beautiful tapestry of their shared humanity. And as they celebrated this newfound camaraderie, Jamal could see a future glimmering ahead, a future where love truly conquered hate, and where connections formed could withstand any storm. "Let us make tonight a promise, shall we?" Jamal called out, standing a little taller in his chair. "Let us promise to be there for one another. In good times and bad, let us lift each other up." The crowd echoed his sentiment, a wave of emotion washing over them as they made that vow. Life may throw them darkness again, but hand in hand, light would always prevail. And just like that, in the warmth of the southern night, Jamal had truly become the heart of his community, a shining beacon against the shadows that once threatened to swallow him whole. Now, hear us, the real moment of truth. You need to subscribe now. Don't wait not even one more second to share this incredible journey. Leave a like to feed the algorithm and spread this powerful message of unity. Comment how this transformation made you feel, and share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this heartwarming change. This is the moment to show your support. Your voice matters.